we are going to dissect the top line and just how seriously they fumbled offensively.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. The expectations were high, but meeting them was next to impossible. And we're going to talk about that and really just the top line today because it's so hard to truly just blame one factor. So I think if we start by unpacking each player's season, each line season, and just kind of looking at things on a much smaller scale, we're going to be able to digest things a little easier. But make sure that you are subscribed or following for free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts to get the latest and greatest updates and episodes as soon as news is available. We just have to just dive right into this thing because I don't know how I can't be quiet any longer. I've never been quiet, let's be honest. But we need to start with the elephant in the room here, right? Jonathan Huberdeau had a fantastic 115-point season with Florida last year. Comes in after being traded in the Matthew Tkachuk trade. And if I have to hear about that trade one more time while I'm watching the Bruins-Panthers series, it's about time I'm just going to mute the television, right? But he had 45 points this season. Yeah, you heard that. 45 with just 15 goals. But he has never really been he's always been a playmaker, right? He's never been that true through and through goal scorer. So he has a lot of value on any team. And that's why people were so excited for him to come in and play on the top line and basically replace the player that he had the same number of points with last season. So it was a little disappointed. I think we were all disappointed when you realize he hadn't had a season like that since 2017. So that is a long time. That is a big difference from 2017 to 2000. What year are we in? 23. It wasn't a good season for him. And could that be because it was the transition period from quite literally the other side of the continent and, coming to a new environment and, taking over the role of Johnny Gaudreau? And then don't forget, he also came in kind of banged up at the start of the season. I still remember this clear as day, and I'm sure many of you do as well. But it was one of the earlier games in the season, and Huberdeau had missed a shift, and I don't think anything had truly happened, leading up to this moment, but he left, and then Sutter was like, yeah, he had to go take a dump. But it came out that he was actually on the medical table, a little dinged up. So it's just was not a great time to kind of shift into this kind of funny ha-ha thing here because Jonathan Huberdeau was struggling. And again, I need people who are criticizing him to look at this from a human perspective. I don't know about you, but there have been times where I make, a change in my life. Let's say I'm going to go with a job, okay? You are so used to working in one specified field. You know your coworkers, you know your environment. You've been there for the last 8 years, right? And then you get transferred. You are shifting your entire life to a whole new organization, a new role with new coworkers, with new managers, with new somewhere, a new place to live. That is a lot to process and a lot to shoulder while you are also trying to be the best of the best at your job. Oh, okay, I have to compartmentalize this and deal with this later. No, these are things that happen throughout your life and throughout the season for Huberdeau, and they happened, right? This was just a tough year for Huberdeau. The biggest, worst, most catastrophic drop off in NHL history, right? And this is absolutely no disrespect to Tyler Toffoli, but he is not the winger that is going to complement Huberdeau. We were waiting for it to happen all season, and it didn't. While Tyler Toffoli had an excellent season himself, it was just not really jiving with Huberdeau. So you need another star, but there is quite literally no reason for any athlete, really, any star in particular, to feel drawn to this team. Sam Bennett and Anthony Duclair just had a better finish, and they were kind of set up for success as a line, and that's that. I don't think you can blame things entirely on him being traded or him having new line mates or coming in hurt. There are so many pieces to the puzzle that make the complete picture here. And there are so many things that go into a season as a team that aren't quantitative, right? You can't just, break down and say this is when this happened and that was the result. Is it qualitative or quantitative? You can't just look at this and say this team didn't make the playoffs because of Jonathan Huberdeau. No. There were a lot of different things that went into this season, and we're just getting started, right? There is a lot of time ahead of us here, and to break down every single player's season and kind of analyze their play, their contributions, and what factors went into their season is going to be a big part of understanding where the Flames go from here, right? And coming up next, we're going to talk about Elias Lindholm's season because he is the only player on that top line that played on that top line last season. But before we do that, I do want to take a quick moment here and tell you about eBay Motors. For a championship team, it is all about making sure every player is the perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need a part, accessories, or anything for your car, head to eBay Motors. With eBay's guaranteed fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check mark to know what part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be right back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and at the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay guaranteed fit only available for U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions may apply. And thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me on Locked On Flames. As always, I'm Jess Belmosto, and you can follow me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. Elias Lindholm, man, I felt so bad. So bad. He had one line mate leave, and then, 2 weeks later, his other one left. So he was potentially going to be starting from scratch, right? No one really knew at the time what the lines would look like. I mean, you knew Huberdeau would more than likely slot in on that in Gaudreau's spot, but who was going to take that right wing spot? We talked about that for forever last summer, right? And it's incredible to see where this team is now versus where they were it wasn't a year ago, but a little less than a year ago. Elias Lindholm lost his wingers, had to adjust to new line mates. 64 points in 80 games is a drop off from 82 and 82. I think that there are just things that happen. And when you lose your top line mates, the two of the best US born players in this league, you're going to see a significant drop off. You are going to see a drop off in numbers. I don't think people have, I don't want to say a lot of people, but I think that there are moments where people forget that there are other factors that go into creating a successful hockey game. You're not going to go out there and have Lewis on your top line and expect him to bank 115 points in the same season, right? Your expectations are not going to be the same. You're going to see you're not going to see an increase in numbers when you put anyone on this line, but you're more than likely going to see a decrease when you take a significant component away, right? But it's going to feel so much worse anytime there's a drop off, but especially after last season, and just especially after how much this team struggled offensively, right? He was not a point per game player this year, shocker. And I think he still played well offensively. And I think he brought his two-way game with him too. I don't think that Elias Lindholm is going to wake up one day in Sweden this summer and say, I don't want to be a Selke candidate anymore. He brings that two-way forward ability to this team that I think Backlund has excelled at recently. And we'll talk about that down the line, but for Lindholm to be under this contract, like making $4.56 million at the skill level that he has, it blows my mind because that is such a fantastic deal for him. They really just need to do everyone a favor and get him a legitimate winger, a right wing, because again, this isn't a knock at Toffoli because I love Tyler Toffoli. You guys know that I'm the first person to own that I underestimated Tyler Toffoli on the top wing, on that top spot. But I do think that there just has to be another player that complements Huberdeau in order for there to be true, consistent, expected offense. You need to get them a finisher. This year's performance has him in a very weird spot. There was that non-committal from him. And right now, you need to be preparing to kiss his feet and give him what he wants. And you know what? A Brad Treliving would do anything. Are you kidding me? I think Brad Treliving, it wouldn't be as far as the Gaudreau, the whole whining and dining and $11 million. It wouldn't be like that, but I do think that there would be a serious effort from Treliving to get Lindholm to stay. I do, and there should be, regardless of who the general manager is. I do think that this is going to come back to again who the coach is in the fall, and I want to see 2021-22 Lindy back. That was inside of him, and we can bring it back out. We just have to, like in Shrek, I'm an onion, I have all these layers, blah, blah. We have to pull back those layers and find it again. But there needs to be something done in order for this top line to succeed, to be a consistent offensive threat that you used to be, okay? I'm sorry. We don't need to harp on the past, but if you look at what complemented that line, it was the fact that you had two wingers that make plays. Johnny Gaudreau was not afraid to set up plays for Tkachuk, and you also had a center who could play two-way defensive game, but could also, again, successfully read his wingers and make sure that the play is executed. That isn't there this year, or that wasn't there this year. And that It's not, I want to say, oh, that's okay, but it's not okay because right now we should be watching the Flames. This time of year, everyone wants to see their team in, but the Flames truly had potential prior to Gaudreau and Tkachuk leaving. And there needs to be some sort of not rebuilding isn't the right word, but like shuffling. There has to be some sort of stronger solution. Because as much as I love Tyler Toffoli, he is not the answer for that spot as long as you have Huberdeau and Lindholm. That's that. And coming up next, we are going to wrap up the show with some Tyler Toffoli praise. I never wanted to sound like I'm dogging on him because he's one of my favorite players, and none of this is his fault. In fact, he had some great goals this season, and we're going to talk about those. And thanks everyone for hanging out with me on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts and for free on YouTube, because there's plenty of off season ahead of us and there's plenty of news to be broken and talked about. And if anyone's going to share an opinion, it's going to be me. So, Tyler Toffoli, man, this season was an outlier for him in every way, shape, and form. Set a new career high with 34 goals, and he had a new career high with 73 points. 73 points for number 73. It's like it was written in the stars, right? He was brought in to be a depth guy, not like a bottom six, but like a middle six guy, right? And we saw that with him. We saw that with him last season when right after the deadline, he came in and he found his spot in the lineup. He had been coached by Daryl Sutter in the past with the LA Kings, and we knew that Toffoli was coming in here to not only lend his skills, but also be part of a leadership group. I don't want to call it like, it's not like this clique in the locker room, but everyone has a voice and they use it, right? But Toffoli is one of those outspoken players. Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield cried when they found out he was being traded for a reason, right? To me, Tyler Toffoli was captain material in Montreal. Obviously, rightfully deserved Nick Suzuki, but had he stayed, I think that is a very plausible thing to happen because he is such a versatile player, right? You can put him in bottom six, middle six, or you say, hey, we're putting you on the top line this year. And he makes the most out of every single situation he is in. He stepped up and made the most of it. I know at the start of the season, I said, I don't think Toffoli is your guy for that spot. Why don't you put Mangiapane there? I take that back. I walk that back 100 times over. Tyler Toffoli helped help this team win games. Without him on the top line, you are still struggling offensively. And you're still struggling offensively because you don't really have that true finisher, that high end, that top end player you need to execute those plays and that can read the plays from a player, consistently read those plays from players like Huberdeau, right? But this line gets a B- from me, okay? To me, Tyler Toffoli is the only one that kept them afloat here, okay? And I do not mean any disrespect to Toffoli when I talk about the criticisms of this line, or to Huberdeau, or to Lindholm. But I need everyone to understand that, while this line, like on paper, looks pretty good, it's not transferring. There is no There's no comparison here, and you need it to be more. And you're doing your team a disservice. Not only the guy that you have locked up for the next like 63 years or until like the earth catches on fire, but to everyone else on this team. Because if you don't have a strong roster assembled, you're just going to keep missing the playoffs. You will miss the playoffs time and time again. And we are quite literally, we have seen that with this organization, right? Whether it be because of injuries, people getting traded at the deadline, people just consistently underperforming, bad coaching. I mean, they didn't make the playoffs the year Jeff Ward was a coach, and I wonder why. But I can only speak to what I have seen in the last 3.5, 4 years covering the Flames. Y'all know what this team has done before that better than I do. And it has to change. You can't just be giving people the benefit of the doubt and saying, hey, you are an excellent leader and we're paying you $6 million. It's the 6th year of that contract that you signed after a 40-goal season. You can eat up 12 minutes of ice time a night. No, accountability matters. This could be a controversial take, but you're not going to win if your elite playmaker doesn't have someone to execute and finish the play. So start by building those pieces. Usually people are like, oh, like build your foundation from the bottom up. Your top line here is kind of your foundation. So keep working. Just keep working. Do something for yourself. I have no issues with this line. Like, I don't look at this line and say, beef. I have beef with you. What I do have beef with, which I forgot to mention right off the bat, was Jonathan Huberdeau playing on his off wing. Not a 22-year-old kid. He's an established, elite player. And you're playing him on his off wing. For what? Because of Alan Walsh's tweet? Because he doesn't like what you had to say? What are you doing? No reason to be spiteful. You're not a podcast host. You're hoping to get your team to a Stanley Cup final. I couldn't coach a hockey team. Are you kidding me? I can talk about it, pick about someone else's mistakes, but I'm not coaching. So that's that. This top line, B-, because it could have been more. The expectation was higher. Okay? We will reevaluate November. 7 months from now, when we're a month into the season. Hopefully this long off season does them some good. Tyler Toffoli's on vacation. Elias and his fiance are back in Sweden with their baby. And Huberdeau, I don't know where he is. He's not like super active on social media, so I can't pinpoint it, but I would assume he is somewhere warm, decompressing. Rightfully so. But thank you everyone so much for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and make sure that you are subscribed and following Locked On Flames for free wherever you're getting your podcasts, and of course on YouTube as well. And remember that we're here for you, your team, every day.